In the bustling halls of Riverbend Regional Hospital, new nurse Lily Spencer is eager to make a difference. But her dedication is put to the test when she notices something troubling about her elderly patient, Evelyn Carter, signs of neglect that no one seems willing to explain. As Lily digs deeper, she finds herself facing off against Dr. Robert Hill, a senior doctor with a dark reputation and powerful connections. Determined to protect her patient, Lily risks her career and maybe even more in a fight to bring the truth to light. Will her courage be enough to expose the secrets lurking in the shadows of Riverbend? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from, and if stories of resilience move you. Don't forget to subscribe and join us for this powerful story of compassion and courage. Lily Spencer checked her watch as she parked in the massive lot in front of Riverbend Regional Hospital. She had arrived early, her nerves pushing her to avoid even the slightest delay on her first day. Standing by her car, she took in the hospital's towering structure and reminded herself that she was here to make a difference. After a moment's breath, she walked inside, bracing herself for the busy day ahead. The halls buzzed with staff and patients, each on their own mission, adding to the brisk energy that filled the place. "This is what you wanted," she reminded herself. A real challenge. Lily was proud of her training and her work in smaller clinics, but Riverbend was different. It was vast, busy, and, if rumors were true, came with its own share of hospital politics. But Lily was determined to let nothing sway her focus on patient care. As she reached the nurses' station, she was greeted by Rebecca Thompson, a senior nurse who looked as if she had seen it all. With her warm smile and slightly graying hair, Rebecca radiated a steady, grounded energy that instantly set Lily at ease. "Welcome to Riverbend, Lily," Rebecca greeted her warmly. "We're a full house today, so you'll get a real taste of what it's like here. Hope you're ready." Lily returned her smile. "More than ready, Rebecca. Thanks for showing me the ropes." They spent the morning touring the facility, Rebecca introducing Lily to the other staff and going over her responsibilities. By mid-morning, they arrived at the patient assignments, where Lily was introduced to Dr. Robert Hill. He seemed confident, perhaps a little too confident, Lily thought. His brief handshake and cursory nod gave her the impression that he didn't often make time for new hires. When Lily was assigned to Evelyn Carter, an 85-year-old stroke patient, Rebecca offered a few words of advice. "Evelyn's a sweetheart," Rebecca said, "but she's been through a lot. Stroke hit her hard, and I think it left more than just physical scars." The words stayed with Lily as she entered Evelyn's room for the first time. There, she found a frail yet dignified woman sitting up in her hospital bed. Her gray hair was tied back, and her eyes were a soft, faded blue. She looked at Lily with a cautious warmth. "Good morning, Mrs. Carter," Lily greeted her, gently patting her hand. "I'm Lily, your nurse today. How are you feeling?" Evelyn's smile was slight but genuine. "Oh, just fine, dear. Not much else to do in here but get by, I suppose." The two shared a brief but comforting conversation, and Lily felt an immediate connection with her. Evelyn was grateful for the smallest gestures, like adjusting her pillows or chatting about the weather outside. But as Lily helped Evelyn into a fresh hospital gown, she noticed faint yellow stains on the one Evelyn had been wearing, along with a medicinal, sharp scent lingering in the air. "Let's get you comfortable," Lily said, her voice gentle though her mind was slightly unsettled. She made a mental note to speak with Rebecca about the odd smell later. Throughout the day, Lily found herself thinking about Evelyn. Something about the elderly woman's frailty and quiet resignation stirred Lily's protective instincts. During her next check-in, she decided to spend a little extra time with Evelyn. As they chatted, Evelyn's eyes grew softer, but there was a lingering sadness behind them. "You're very kind," Evelyn said, almost as if she were surprised. "So many of the nurses are in such a rush these days, but I suppose they have their hands full." Lily felt a pang of guilt. "I'm glad I can spend some time with you, and if there's anything you need or want to talk about, I'm here." Evelyn's gaze drifted to the window, her expression almost wistful. "Thank you, dear. It's just nice to be treated like a person, you know." Lily's curiosity grew. Why would anyone make her feel otherwise? She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, but she chose not to pry further. Evelyn was clearly someone who had weathered life's storms in silence. The following morning, as Lily approached Evelyn's room, she caught a glimpse of Dr. Hill leaving. He gave her a brisk nod as he walked past, his expression unreadable. When Lily entered, Evelyn seemed tense, her hands trembling slightly as she held onto her blankets. "Everything all right, Mrs. Carter?" Lily asked, her tone light, but her eyes sharp. Evelyn nodded quickly, her face turned slightly away. "Oh, yes, just an old woman's nerves." But Lily noticed that her gown bore the same faint stains as before, and the same strange, medicinal smell clung to the room. Trying not to let her concern show, she helped Evelyn clean up and decided she needed to look into this further. Her instincts told her there was more to Evelyn's anxiety than she was letting on. Later, she mentioned it to Rebecca, who gave her a knowing look but didn't elaborate. "It's best not to get too involved, Lily. Dr. Hill's one of the longest-serving doctors here, and well, let's just say he has a way of dealing with things," Rebecca said carefully. As the week continued, Lily's sense of unease only grew. She noticed that Evelyn's demeanor often shifted after Dr. Hill's visits, and her anxiety seemed to deepen with each encounter. Rebecca, though warm and supportive, warned Lily to tread carefully. "You're new here," she said, her voice low, "and trust me, Dr. Hill isn't someone you want to cross." Despite the warnings, Lily found herself unable to turn a blind eye. Her nights became restless as her thoughts turned over Evelyn's plight and the troubling dynamics she was beginning to see at Riverbend. One evening, she stayed late to check on Evelyn. As she quietly entered the room, she saw Evelyn lying still, her eyes open but distant. Lily could see the traces of silent tears on her cheeks. Without words, she moved to Evelyn's side, gently holding her hand. "Sometimes it's easier not to say anything, dear," Evelyn whispered, her voice barely audible. Lily's resolve hardened. She didn't know exactly what was happening, but she knew Evelyn deserved better. She vowed to be a constant, supportive presence in Evelyn's life, ready to listen whenever Evelyn decided to share. In Act 1, Lily's character and dedication are established, along with her protective instincts toward Evelyn. The subtle tension is introduced with Dr. Hill's mysterious demeanor, Evelyn's unease, and Rebecca's cryptic warnings. Each scene builds a sense of mystery and growing concern, leading Lily to question the dynamics and uncover hidden challenges at Riverbend. Setting up the first climax in Act 3. Here's Act 2. Unearthing the mystery in full, following the development plan. This act increases the suspense and intrigue, keeping the emotional tension simmering as Lily uncovers more about Dr. Hill's behavior and Evelyn's situation. As the days passed, Lily's instincts urged her to pay close attention to Evelyn's room and interactions with Dr. Hill. It was hard to ignore Evelyn's silent suffering, the tension in her hands whenever Dr. Hill entered or exited, or her anxious glances whenever she and Lily were alone. Late one night, Lily lingered near Evelyn's room as her shift was winding down. She caught sight of Dr. Hill leaving Evelyn's room, a clipboard under his arm, his face impassive. There was a subtle, sharp odor in the air as he walked past, one Lily had come to associate with Evelyn's room and Dr. Hill's visits. After he left, Lily approached Evelyn, who seemed more withdrawn than ever, clutching her blanket with trembling hands. "Mrs. Carter, is everything all right?" she asked gently, hoping her steady presence might comfort Evelyn. Evelyn managed a weak smile, though her eyes didn't meet Lily's. "Everything's just fine, dear," she murmured. "You know, sometimes we have to make peace with things. It's easier that way." Lily felt the weight of those words, the unspoken plea beneath them, and resolved that she wouldn't let this slide. After her shift ended, Lily approached Rebecca in the nurse's lounge, hoping to gain more insight. Rebecca looked up with a sympathetic expression when Lily brought up Evelyn's situation. "You've noticed it too," Rebecca said, her voice barely above a whisper. She took a deep breath, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "Dr. Hill has a way of treating certain patients, especially those who don't have anyone to stand up for them." Rebecca's words hung in the air, her tone full of meaning, and Lily felt a pang of dread. "Are you saying that Evelyn isn't the first?" Rebecca nodded solemnly. "But he's been here for years, and he's connected. No one wants to get on his bad side." The silence between them felt heavy, as if they were both facing a shadow too large to confront directly. Lily realized that if she chose to pursue this, she'd be on her own. Lily decided to observe without drawing attention. She began noting down Dr. Hill's visits, timing his entrances and exits from Evelyn's room. She became more deliberate, spending extra time with Evelyn to help her feel safe, though she kept her concerns hidden. One evening, Evelyn whispered to her, "Thank you for sitting with me, Lily. It makes things feel less lonely." Lily squeezed her hand. "You're not alone, Mrs. Carter. I'm here to help in any way I can." Evelyn's expression softened, and for a moment, Lily saw a glimmer of relief. But beneath that relief, there remained a flicker of fear. One night, while reviewing patient charts, Lily noticed that Evelyn's vitals were fluctuating more than they should have been. When she double-checked Evelyn's records, she found that Dr. Hill had made unusual entries, noting behavioral issues that didn't align with the quiet, anxious woman Lily had come to know. Growing more uneasy, she approached Dr. Marcus Gray, a younger doctor who had been friendly during her first few days. She casually asked if he had ever noticed anything strange in Dr. Hill's methods. Dr. Gray hesitated but ultimately shook his head. "He's well regarded here. Maybe old-fashioned, sure, but he's never been questioned that I know of," Dr. Gray said. But there was something guarded in his expression. Lily could tell he was holding back. She realized then just how deep Dr. Hill's influence ran through the hospital. The more Lily observed, the more she noticed Dr. Hill's behavior wasn't just reserved for Evelyn. Other patients, particularly elderly ones with few visitors, seemed tense after his rounds. A sense of helplessness grew within her. She felt she was up against an untouchable force. One afternoon, as she helped Evelyn with her lunch, the elderly woman's eyes grew misty, and her hand tightened around her spoon. "Mrs. Carter, you don't have to tell me everything, but if there's anything bothering you, anything at all, I'm here," Lily offered gently. Evelyn took a shaky breath. "Sometimes we're just too afraid to speak," she whispered, her eyes fixed on a point in the distance. "But I'm grateful for you, Lily. You make it bearable." The weight of Evelyn's words felt like a plea for help. Lily's heart ached, knowing she was tiptoeing around an invisible wall. That night, Lily lay awake, replaying Evelyn's words over and over. She thought of all the elderly patients she had met during her time as a nurse. Vulnerable people who depended on others to care for them. The idea that someone would misuse that trust gnawed at her conscience. The next morning, Lily met Rebecca in the break room. "I'm going to talk to someone about this," she said, her voice steely. Rebecca placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Just be careful, Lily. Dr. Hill has been here a long time, and he's built a reputation. But you're doing the right thing." With her heart pounding, Lily gathered her notes and went to Officer Liam Adams, a hospital security officer she'd met a few times. She explained her concerns carefully, making sure not to sound accusatory, but Officer Adams listened with an attentive expression. Nodding as she spoke, "Let me look into this quietly," he said. "I'll start with the staff schedule and see if there's a pattern. But keep this between us for now." Relieved, Lily agreed. She left feeling both hopeful and anxious, wondering if she had just set something into motion that couldn't be undone. The next few days were tense. Lily continued her work, checking in on Evelyn whenever she could, hoping the elderly woman might open up. Meanwhile, she kept in touch with Officer Adams, who discreetly updated her that he was reviewing hospital footage and records. Lily could feel Dr. Hill's gaze on her more frequently. His words were always professionally cordial, but there was a coolness in his eyes, a subtle warning that didn't need to be spoken aloud. "You're quite attentive, Nurse Spencer," he said one afternoon. "Almost as if you're looking for something." Lily met his gaze, trying to mask her unease. "Just doing my job, Doctor." Dr. Hill's smile was thin, his eyes narrowing just slightly. "Good. That's what I expect from all my staff." She couldn't shake the feeling that he knew what she was up to, and the knowledge sent a chill through her. One evening, Officer Adams approached her with a subdued expression. "There's something strange in the visitor records. Dr. Hill has logged a suspiciously high number of after-hours visits to patients like Evelyn. Patients who typically wouldn't need such frequent check-ins. Lily's pulse quickened. Do you think that's enough to warrant a formal report? Adams hesitated. It's circumstantial, but it's a start. Keep watching him, and try to get anything concrete. If we can get one of his patients to give a statement, it would help. The sense of mounting risk made Lily's determination waver for a moment, but Evelyn's vulnerable face came to mind, and she knew she couldn't stop now. That night, as Lily prepared Evelyn for bed, the elderly woman suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand, her eyes brimming with desperation. "Lily," she whispered, "promise me, you'll make them listen." Lily's breath caught. "Mrs. Carter, if there's something you need to say, now is the time. I'm here, and I'll believe you." With trembling lips, Evelyn recounted how Dr. Hill had belittled her, chastising her for her neediness and making her feel like a burden. He had been distant yet coldly authoritative, treating her not as a patient but as a nuisance. Lily held Evelyn's hand tighter, her heart breaking. "Thank you for trusting me, Mrs. Carter. I promise I'll make sure this stops." The next day, Lily met with Officer Adams, recounting Evelyn's statement. Adams agreed it was enough to initiate a formal investigation, but cautioned her to stay vigilant. "You've started something big, Lily, and if Dr. Hill catches wind of this, well, just watch your back." As Lily left the meeting, she knew she'd crossed a line. She could feel the storm gathering, a mix of fear and resolve propelling her forward. But she had to see this through. For Evelyn, for every patient who might suffer in silence. In Act 2, the tension builds as Lily gathers enough evidence to move from suspicion to action. She forms a quiet alliance with Officer Adams, who begins to look into Dr. Hill's irregular activities. Evelyn finally opens up, confirming Lily's fears and galvanizing her to pursue a formal investigation. The stakes grow higher as Dr. Hill senses Lily's interference, setting up for the first confrontation in Act 3. Lily felt the tension thickening with each passing day. After Evelyn's revelation, she took every precaution to keep her interactions with Dr. Hill brief and her expression neutral, but her heart raced whenever he was near. It was clear that he sensed her growing suspicion. His narrowed eyes and pointed glances in her direction carried a silent warning. One afternoon, Dr. Hill approached her as she finished her rounds with Evelyn. "Nurse Spencer," he said coolly, his eyes lingering on her clipboard, "I'm noticing an unusual amount of concern over Mrs. Carter." Lily kept her gaze steady. "It's my duty to care for her, Dr. Hill. She needs attention and support." A faint, chilling smile crossed his lips. "Indeed," he replied before walking away, leaving Lily with an unshakable sense of foreboding. She knew she was entering dangerous territory. Lily's meetings with Officer Adams became her only source of comfort. She shared her suspicions and kept him informed on every observation and detail of Dr. Hill's conduct. Adams assured her that a formal investigation was underway, but he cautioned her to stay low-key. "There's enough here to dig deeper," he said, his voice a blend of encouragement and caution. But without concrete evidence, he might slip through the cracks. "Just hang tight." For now, all Lily could do was continue to protect Evelyn and wait for the investigation to gain traction. Evelyn was growing frailer, and her fear of Dr. Hill's visits became more apparent. But Lily's quiet assurances seemed to give her newfound strength. One day, as Lily helped her eat, Evelyn looked up with a steely glint in her eye. "Lily, dear," she whispered, her voice strong despite her age, "don't let anyone silence you. I've spent a lifetime letting people tell me what's best for me, and look where it's gotten me." Lily squeezed her hand, feeling Evelyn's resolve fueling her own. "I won't. I promise, Mrs. Carter. You won't go through this alone." It was late in the evening, and Lily was updating patient charts when the red light above Evelyn's room flashed urgently. She rushed down the hall, her pulse quickening with each step. Bursting into the room, she found Evelyn's meal tray overturned, and her expression was one of panic. Dr. Hill was already there, standing by Evelyn's bed, his face tense. He turned to Lily with an expression of cold irritation. "This is a simple matter, Nurse Spencer," he said curtly. Mrs. Carter simply lost her balance. "You're making a mountain out of a molehill." Lily could feel her hands trembling as she spoke. Dr. Hill, I think Mrs. Carter deserves respect and care. She's not just another patient. Dr. Hill's eyes narrowed, his voice taking on a dangerous tone. You're overstepping, Nurse Spencer. If you can't control your emotions, perhaps you're in the wrong field. Lily's blood boiled, but she forced herself to remain calm. I'm simply doing my job, Dr. Hill, and part of my job is making sure my patients feel safe. His smile was icy. Then perhaps I should have a word with the administration about your over-involvement. The threat was thinly veiled, but unmistakable. As he left the room, Lily's resolve only grew stronger. She knew she had crossed a line, but she couldn't turn back now. After the confrontation, Lily knew she needed more support. She discreetly approached other nurses, testing the waters to see if they had observed similar behavior from Dr. Hill. One evening, Nurse Angela Ruiz, a kind-hearted woman who had been at Riverbend for years, confided in her. I've heard things, Angela whispered, looking around nervously. There have been other patients who seemed fearful, like they were afraid to speak up. But Dr. Hill has friends in high places. Lily felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Angela. Knowing I'm not alone means a lot. Angela smiled faintly. You have more allies here than you think, Lily. Just be careful. A few days later, Lily was administering medication when an alarm went off in Evelyn's room. She rushed in to find Evelyn gasping for breath, her frail body trembling. Panic surged through her as she grabbed a nearby oxygen mask, helping Evelyn steady her breathing. Dr. Hill arrived moments later, a stern expression on his face. He glanced at Lily with thinly veiled irritation before addressing Evelyn with clinical detachment. You need to calm down, Mrs. Carter. Overreacting doesn't help anyone. Lily's patience snapped. With all due respect, Dr. Hill, she deserves kindness, not condemnation. The room fell silent, and for a moment, Dr. Hill's mask of professionalism cracked, revealing a glimmer of anger. You're treading on thin ice, Nurse Spencer. I suggest you remember your place. As he stormed out, Lily helped Evelyn settle down, her heart pounding with both fear and fury. That evening, Lily met with Officer Adams again. She recounted the recent incidents, each one a testament to Dr. Hill's neglect and cold treatment of his patients. Adams listened intently, taking careful notes. This is enough for me to take this higher, Adams said, his voice resolute. There's more going on here, and we're going to get to the bottom of it. Lily felt a rush of relief. It was the first solid assurance that Dr. Hill's actions might finally face consequences. The following day, Dr. Hill cornered Lily in the hallway. His tone was low, almost friendly, but his words carried a subtle menace. You're making this very difficult for yourself, Nurse Spencer, he said, his voice smooth. A word of advice: think very carefully about the path you're on. Some things are better left alone. Lily met his gaze, refusing to back down. Mrs. Carter deserves to be treated with dignity, as does every patient here. Dr. Hill's eyes flashed. I can make things very difficult for you. I have the administration's ear, and trust me, you wouldn't be the first to find yourself out of a job over a misunderstanding. Her pulse raced, but she held his gaze. I'm not afraid to stand up for what's right. His smile was thin. We'll see about that. That evening, Officer Adams submitted a formal complaint to the hospital board, detailing Lily's concerns and presenting Evelyn's testimony along with his own findings. Lily knew the next few days would be critical, as the administration reviewed the evidence and decided on their course of action. To her surprise, several staff members, including Nurse Angela and Dr. Gray, submitted statements supporting her claims. Their solidarity bolstered her, giving her hope that justice might prevail. The next time Lily saw Evelyn, the elderly woman took her hand, her eyes filled with gratitude and a hint of fear. Thank you, Lily, for listening, for caring. No one's ever done that for me before. Lily felt tears prick her eyes. I won't let him hurt you, Mrs. Carter. You have my word. Evelyn nodded, a glimmer of strength in her gaze. I know you'll do what's right, and I hope you know how much it means to me. Their words lingered in the air, a bond of trust that fortified Lily's resolve. 2 days later, Lily was summoned to the administration office. There, she found Officer Adams, the hospital board members, and Dr. Hill, who wore a mask of indignant outrage. As the board presented the complaints and evidence, Dr. Hill's demeanor shifted from defiant to enraged. "This is absurd," he thundered. "I've dedicated my life to this hospital, and now you're listening to a temporary nurse with no experience?" Lily held her ground, speaking calmly but firmly. "The patients deserve respect and compassion, Dr. Hill. They deserve to feel safe." Dr. Hill scoffed, but his confidence had begun to fray. Finally, the board informed him that he was to be suspended pending further investigation. His face turned red with fury, his gaze landing on Lily with a look of hatred. "This isn't over," he hissed as he left. "You'll regret this." But Lily stood tall, knowing she had done what was right. She returned to her patients with a sense of peace, knowing Evelyn and others were finally free of Dr. Hill's cold, careless treatment. In the days following Dr. Hill's suspension, Evelyn's condition visibly improved. She seemed lighter, more at peace, and her gratitude toward Lily was boundless. The support Lily received from the staff reminded her that even in the face of opposition, she wasn't alone. She had made a difference, standing up for her patients and refusing to let fear or intimidation silence her. Lily visited Evelyn every day, cherishing their friendship and the newfound sense of hope that had blossomed. As the days passed, she knew that she had found her true calling, not just in caring for her patients, but in being their voice when they couldn't speak up for themselves. In Act 3, Lily's confrontation with Dr. Hill escalates to the story's first major climax, with tensions mounting as Lily formally challenges Dr. Hill's conduct. With the support of Officer Adams and other staff members, she manages to expose his mistreatment, leading to his suspension. This act cements Lily's role as an advocate and protector for vulnerable patients like Evelyn, setting the stage for further fallout and emotional resolution in Act 4. If this approach meets your expectations, we can move forward to Act 4, where the story takes a brief lull before building to the final emotional climax and resolution. With Dr. Hill suspended, the atmosphere around Riverbend seemed lighter. Staff members went about their duties with a renewed energy, and patients like Evelyn, who had feared Dr. Hill's presence, appeared more at ease. Lily's relief was palpable, but she felt a lingering sense of unease. She knew Dr. Hill wouldn't accept his suspension quietly, especially after the promise he'd made to her as he left. Rebecca approached Lily one afternoon as she organized patient files. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her gaze full of warmth and concern. Lily managed a small smile. "Better. It's just, I know this isn't over. I can feel it." Rebecca nodded sympathetically. "He has connections, no doubt. But remember, you've got support here too. The patients, the staff. We all know you did the right thing." Lily took comfort in Rebecca's words, yet a small voice inside warned her to remain vigilant. There was an unshakable feeling that Dr. Hill's absence was temporary, and that he'd return with a renewed drive to protect his reputation. Her sense of humor returning, and even her appetite had improved. One afternoon, as Lily helped her take a stroll down the hall, Evelyn's face lit up with a grateful smile. "Lily," Evelyn said, her voice soft yet filled with newfound strength, "I feel like I can finally breathe again. I can't thank you enough." Lily gently squeezed her hand. "You've been through so much, Mrs. Carter. I'm just glad I could be here to help." They sat by a window, watching the sun cast warm patterns across the floor, and Lily realized how far they had come together. Evelyn's courage and gratitude reminded her that this battle, while painful, had been worth every challenge. Despite the progress, Lily couldn't shake her worries. There were murmurs around the hospital, hushed conversations about Dr. Hill's suspension, and occasional side glances from administration staff. Lily overheard snippets about how his suspension was under review and felt her heart sink. Rebecca caught her looking worried one day and approached her. "I know it's nerve-wracking, Lily, but hang in there. They can't just sweep this under the rug." Lily nodded, though she wished she could believe it wholeheartedly. Dr. Hill's influence was deep-rooted, and she knew the system sometimes protected those in power. She tried to stay focused on her duties, giving her patients the care and kindness they deserved, but the uncertainty gnawed at her. One evening, as Lily was preparing to leave, she was surprised to find Officer Liam Adams waiting for her by the hospital's exit. His expression was serious but compassionate. "Lily, I thought I'd give you an update," he said, walking alongside her as they left the hospital. "There's a push from Dr. Hill's attorney to have the suspension lifted. He's claiming the accusations are based on unfounded emotional testimony and that there's no concrete evidence of any wrongdoing." Lily's heart sank. "What about the patient statements? The staff support? They're reviewing it, but his lawyer is making a case that the hospital acted too hastily," Adams explained. "It's complicated, and unfortunately there's a chance he might return sooner than expected." They stopped outside, the evening air heavy with the weight of his words. Lily felt a wave of helplessness, but Adams placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Stay strong, Lily," he said. "No matter what happens, you've made an impact here. You stood up for what's right, and that's not something anyone can take away from you." Evelyn had noticed Lily's tense expression in the days following Adams's news. Finally, one afternoon, she asked Lily to sit down with her. "Is everything all right, Lily?" Evelyn's voice was gentle, but her eyes were sharp with concern. Lily hesitated, then sighed. "There's a chance Dr. Hill might come back. His attorney is pushing to have his suspension lifted." Evelyn's face tightened, a flicker of fear flashing across her eyes. She reached for Lily's hand, holding it firmly. "If he comes back, I'll stand with you. I won't let him intimidate me anymore." Lily's eyes filled with gratitude, and she realized how much strength Evelyn had gained. Her courage, so hard won, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The idea of facing Dr. Hill together felt empowering, even if it was daunting. Word of Dr. Hill's potential return spread through the hospital, and a quiet, collective resistance began to form. Staff members, inspired by Lily's bravery, began to speak openly about Dr. Hill's past behavior, sharing stories of patient mistreatment they'd previously been too afraid to disclose. Nurse Angela approached Lily one evening with a small group of nurses. "We've all decided that if Dr. Hill comes back, we'll be here to support you. He's crossed too many lines, and it's time the hospital sees that." Lily was moved by their solidarity. The strength of their unity filled her with renewed resolve. Even if Dr. Hill returned, she knew they wouldn't let him regain the control he once held. A few days later, Lily was called into a meeting with Mr. Gregson, a senior administrator. His demeanor was neutral, his expression unreadable. "Ms. Spencer, we're aware of the unrest surrounding Dr. Hill's suspension. I understand you've led a commendable effort in advocating for your patient," he began, his tone measured. "However, I hope you realize the gravity of these accusations and the complexity of a formal investigation." Lily felt her chest tighten, but she kept her voice steady. "Mr. Gregson, I'm only concerned with the well-being of the patients here. They deserve to feel safe and respected." He nodded slowly. "The board is weighing the decision carefully. But I need to caution you, if Dr. Hill is reinstated, there may be pressure on your position as well. I'm simply advising you to proceed thoughtfully." The subtle warning was clear, and Lily left the meeting feeling a mix of frustration and dread. She realized that even if she had support from her colleagues, the hospital administration might prioritize its reputation over justice. That night, alone in her apartment, Lily's thoughts spiraled. She had risked everything, her career, her sense of security, even her reputation, to stand up against Dr. Hill. But now, with the possibility of his return and the administration's apparent reluctance to fully support her, doubts crept in. What if he returns? What if they make my life impossible here? Her phone buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Rebecca. "Hang in there. We're all behind you, Lily. You did the right thing." The simple message brought her a sense of calm. Taking a deep breath, she reminded herself that she hadn't come this far to let fear dictate her actions. The next morning, Lily visited Evelyn, who could see the tension etched on her face. Without hesitation, Evelyn took Lily's hand. "Lily," she began, her voice unwavering, "whatever happens, you must remember, you've given me something I haven't felt in years. Hope. Don't let them take that from you." Lily felt a surge of gratitude and strength, bolstered by Evelyn's words. The fear of losing her job or facing Dr. Hill's return paled in comparison to the sense of purpose Evelyn had rekindled in her. No matter the outcome, she knew she had to continue advocating for her patients. They shared a quiet moment, the bond between them stronger than ever. It was as though, in Evelyn's words, Lily had found a renewed sense of clarity. Evelyn's unwavering support reminded her of why she had chosen this path, and she vowed to remain resilient, no matter the challenges ahead. In Act 4, the story enters a momentary calm with Dr. Hill's suspension, giving both Lily and Evelyn a brief sense of relief and accomplishment. However, Lily soon learns of the push to have Dr. Hill reinstated, creating a renewed sense of anxiety and doubt. Despite warnings from administration, Lily is bolstered by the growing support of her colleagues and her deepening bond with Evelyn. This act reinforces the story's emotional stakes, setting the stage for the final act where tensions will peak and Lily's fate will be decided. If this direction aligns with your vision, we'll move on to Act 5, second and greater climax, the final confrontation, which will build to the story's ultimate resolution as Lily's bravery and the hospital's true values are tested. Here's Act 5, second and greater climax. The final confrontation as planned. This act delivers the story's ultimate peak, where Lily's fears and dedication culminate in a climactic showdown. This is the turning point where Lily's courage and the support from her allies will either bring lasting change or reinforce the power of the hospital's established hierarchy. Despite the growing tension among the hospital staff, the board ultimately announced Dr. Hill's reinstatement. A wave of disappointment washed over Riverbend, spreading quickly through the staff. Lily felt the impact most keenly. She had hoped that his suspension would mark the end of his influence. Rebecca found her at the nurse's station that morning, her expression a mixture of sympathy and frustration. "He's coming back today," she murmured, squeezing Lily's hand. "But don't let this set you back. We're still behind you." The words were a balm, but Lily felt the weight of the decision heavily. She braced herself for the inevitable confrontation, steeling her resolve. Dr. Hill's reinstatement was a blow, but she wasn't ready to abandon her commitment to Evelyn and the other vulnerable patients. The atmosphere shifted the moment Dr. Hill walked back into Riverbend. He carried himself with an air of quiet victory, his expression smug as he surveyed the nurse's station, his eyes lingering on Lily. "Good to be back," he remarked, his voice carrying just enough edge to make his satisfaction evident. "I hope we can all move forward productively." Lily met his gaze, refusing to flinch. "Our patients' well-being has always been my priority, Dr. Hill. I trust it's yours as well." Dr. Hill's smile turned cold. "I expect nothing less. But remember, Nurse Spencer, some paths can be difficult." The implied threat sent a chill through her, but she held her ground, determined not to show any fear. Knowing that she couldn't face Dr. Hill's return alone, Lily began speaking with other nurses and staff members, encouraging them to stand together if they observed any inappropriate behavior from Dr. Hill. Many of them nodded in agreement, rallying around Lily's courage. "Count on us," said Nurse Angela, her voice full of conviction. "If he tries anything, we'll back you up. This hospital needs to change, and it starts with us." The unity among her colleagues gave Lily hope, and she realized how powerful their collective voice could be. Together, they were prepared to challenge the toxic culture that Dr. Hill had fostered, determined to protect their patients and each other. Just as Lily felt a newfound confidence with her allies' support, a sudden emergency rattled the ward. Evelyn's condition took a sharp turn for the worse. Her heart rate spiked, and her breathing grew shallow. Alarms blared, and Lily rushed to her side, her heart pounding as she helped the team stabilize Evelyn. Dr. Hill arrived, wearing a detached expression as he assessed Evelyn's vitals. "Let's not overreact," he remarked. "Patients of her age often experience fluctuations." Lily's frustration boiled over. "Mrs. Carter deserves our best care, Dr. Hill. She's not just another patient." Dr. Hill's eyes narrowed. "That's enough, Nurse Spencer. I'm overseeing this case now. Perhaps you'd be better suited tending to other patients." He dismissed her, but Lily lingered near Evelyn, unwilling to leave her alone in his care. The tension in the room was palpable, and Lily's heart ached as she saw Evelyn's fearful eyes fixed on her. "I'm here, Mrs. Carter," she thought. "I'm not going anywhere." The next morning, Evelyn regained some strength and asked to speak with Lily in private. She looked frail but resolute, her eyes fixed on Lily with a mixture of gratitude and determination. "Lily," Evelyn began, her voice shaky but firm, "I want to do whatever I can to help. If there's a way to make sure no one else suffers like this, then I'm ready." Lily felt tears prickle at the corners of her eyes. She knew how much courage it took for Evelyn to speak up, especially with Dr. Hill's shadow looming over the hospital. "You're incredibly brave, Mrs. Carter. Together, we'll make sure your voice is heard." Evelyn nodded, her resolve unwavering. It was as if a spark of life had returned to her, fueled by the determination to stand up for herself and others. Lily, Evelyn, and a small group of nurses and doctors gathered in a quiet office, preparing a formal statement to submit to the administration. Evelyn shared her experiences with Dr. Hill, detailing the way he had belittled and neglected her care, and other staff members added their own accounts of witnessing similar behaviors. As they finalized the document, Rebecca placed a reassuring hand on Lily's shoulder. "This isn't just about Evelyn anymore," she said quietly. "It's about all the patients we serve. You've inspired us, Lily." Filled with a mixture of hope and determination, they submitted the statement to Mr. Gregson and the board, knowing that this collective testimony would be hard to ignore. A week later, the board convened a meeting to review the collective testimony. Staff members filled the room, some anxious, others resolute. Dr. Hill sat at the head of the table, his expression a mixture of defiance and contempt, as he listened to the allegations. Evelyn, with Lily by her side, bravely recounted her story. Her voice trembled at first, but with Lily's hand steadying hers, she grew stronger. "I felt afraid," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "But I won't stay silent anymore. I deserve respect, as do all patients." Dr. Hill's response was dismissive. "This is absurd. I've dedicated my career to this hospital, and now you're listening to baseless accusations?" Lily stood up, her voice calm but resolute. "This isn't about you, Dr. Hill. It's about the patients. They deserve compassion, respect, and care. That's why we're here." The board members exchanged glances, visibly moved by the unity in the room. Mr. Gregson addressed Dr. Hill, his tone stern. "We cannot ignore the testimonies of our patients and staff. Effective immediately, your position here is terminated." Dr. Hill's face reddened, but he remained silent, his defeat palpable. The room felt charged with relief, and a collective sense of justice filled the air. After Dr. Hill's final exit, the atmosphere at Riverbend shifted. Staff members and patients alike felt the relief of his absence. Lily received heartfelt words of gratitude from her colleagues, many of whom felt they could finally work without fear of Dr. Hill's retribution. Evelyn's health improved in the days following the decision. She thanked Lily, her voice filled with gratitude. "You've given me peace, Lily. You've given me the courage to believe in myself again." Lily smiled, her heart full. "You're the one who had the courage, Mrs. Carter. I was just here to help you find it." They sat together by the window, watching the sunrise, knowing they had made a lasting difference not just for Evelyn, but for every patient who would walk through Riverbend's doors. Act 5 brings the story to its ultimate resolution, as Lily and Evelyn, supported by a coalition of staff, present their case to the board. Dr. Hill's termination marks a decisive victory, symbolizing a shift toward a more compassionate and just environment at Riverbend. This act closes the story's climactic arc on a note of hope and healing, cementing Lily's role as an advocate for her patients and reinforcing the importance of unity in effecting positive change. If this aligns with your vision, we'll move on to the final act, resolution and reflection in Act 6, which will provide a sense of closure for Lily and Evelyn and highlight the changes that Lily's bravery has inspired in Riverbend. In the weeks following Dr. Hill's departure, Riverbend felt like a different place. Staff members seemed more relaxed, and the atmosphere became one of genuine camaraderie and support. Patients noticed the shift, too. Care felt more personal, and the sense of fear that once lingered in the halls had been replaced by warmth. Lily walked through the corridors with a quiet pride, knowing that her actions had helped bring about this transformation. She had faced her fears, stood up for her beliefs, and made Riverbend a safer, more compassionate place for patients like Evelyn. Rebecca caught up with her at the nurse's station, a smile on her face. "You've done something incredible here, Lily. We're all so proud of you." Lily felt a surge of gratitude. "It wasn't just me," she replied, her voice humble. "It was all of us. Standing together is what made the difference." Evelyn's condition had improved steadily since Dr. Hill's departure. The fear and anxiety that had once clouded her days had faded, replaced by a sense of peace and closure. As she prepared for discharge, she requested a final visit from Lily. When Lily entered Evelyn's room, she found the elderly woman sitting up in bed, her eyes bright and full of warmth. "I can't thank you enough, Lily," Evelyn said, reaching for her hand. "You've given me hope and dignity, things I thought I'd lost." Lily felt tears prick at her eyes. "You're the reason I'm here, Mrs. Carter. You reminded me why I chose this path. Thank you for your courage and for trusting me." They shared a long embrace, and Evelyn gave Lily one last grateful smile. "Promise me you'll keep standing up for others. This world needs more people like you." Lily nodded, her heart full. "I promise." That evening, as Lily sat on her porch at home, she found herself reflecting on her journey at Riverbend. She thought about the risks she'd taken, the challenges she'd faced, and the bonds she'd formed. Every choice, every act of courage had been worth it, not just for Evelyn, but for the future of Riverbend and the vulnerable patients who would come through its doors. She felt a renewed sense of purpose. Her experiences had taught her the power of empathy and resilience, and the importance of speaking up for those who couldn't speak for themselves. With a quiet resolve, she decided to carry this lesson forward in every aspect of her life. In the weeks following Evelyn's departure, Lily became known as a champion of patient rights and a voice for compassionate care. Riverbend's administration took steps to implement changes based on the lessons learned from Dr. Hill's case. Policies were introduced to ensure more oversight, and staff training sessions emphasized respect, empathy, and accountability. Rebecca, along with the other nurses who had supported Lily, felt the positive shift. Riverbend was no longer just a workplace. It was a community built on shared values and a commitment to ethical care. Staff members found renewed pride in their work, inspired by Lily's bravery. One afternoon, as Lily was finishing her rounds, she was surprised to find two visitors waiting for her at the nurse's station, a middle-aged woman and a young man who introduced themselves as Evelyn's daughter, Marie, and grandson, Jacob. "Are you Nurse Lily?" Marie asked, her voice filled with warmth. "I just wanted to thank you in person for everything you did for my mother." Lily's heart swelled. It was an honor to care for her. She's an incredible woman. Marie's eyes filled with tears. "She always speaks so fondly of you. She told us how you stood by her, how you protected her dignity. You'll always have a special place in our hearts." Jacob handed Lily a small framed photo of Evelyn, her eyes shining with strength and joy. "Grandma wanted you to have this so you'll remember her." Lily accepted the photo with gratitude, her voice choked with emotion. "Thank you. I'll cherish this always." As the days turned into weeks, Lily continued her work at Riverbend with renewed dedication. She saw her role as more than just a nurse. It was a calling, a duty to protect and uplift her patients, to give them the voice they deserved. Her experience with Evelyn and Dr. Hill had changed her, deepening her sense of purpose and commitment. One evening, as she left the hospital, she looked back at the building with a smile. She knew that challenges would always be part of her journey, but she felt equipped to face them with courage and integrity. The story of Evelyn's bravery, the solidarity of her colleagues, and the transformation at Riverbend were now woven into the fabric of her life. With each step she took, she carried their stories with her, a reminder of the power of compassion and the impact of standing up for what was right. In this final act, the story concludes with Lily and Evelyn's positive impact on Riverbend and on each other. Dr. Hill's departure creates lasting changes at the hospital, as policies shift to prioritize patient dignity and empathy. Evelyn's family expresses their gratitude, and Lily finds a renewed sense of purpose. The act closes with a hopeful, reflective tone, as Lily looks toward the future, carrying the lessons she's learned with pride. This final act wraps up the story with a sense of fulfillment and ongoing inspiration, leaving readers with the message that compassion, courage, and unity can create meaningful change.